All right, we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris, and this is my channel, We Love Comics. Thank you, each and every one of you, for watching this video, whether you watch it live or you watch it days, weeks, or months later. Today is the 1st of May, 2018. It's currently 4:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I wanted to talk about something that a lot of people have asked about and is on a lot of collectors' minds when it comes to comic books. And that is, because I get this all the time for comments and emails all the time, when do I think the comic book crash will happen again? Now, I guess some people ask me because of the fact that I was one of the people that lived through the comic crash of the mid to late 1990s. I am 47 years old. I've been collecting comics off and on since the early 80s, mid to early 80s, and was one of the people that when the comic crash in the mid to late 90s happened, I stopped collecting altogether. I mean, I think I bought maybe one book in between the years of around 1996 till the end of 2014. And I know a lot of people around my age that went through that experience that just literally dropped out of comic books only to return sometimes decades later. So a lot of people ask me, because I've been through that experience, people have been speculating and they've been fearing that this will happen again and what my opinions are of it. So I wanted to share that with everybody because I think this is a concern. I mean, with any kind of situation, I mean, depending on what you do with it, good things can even come out of bad situations. So it all depends on your reasoning of maybe wanting a crash or not wanting a crash, because there's pluses and minuses to everything. But let me give you a background a little bit from the perspective of the original crash in the 90s. It pretty much started around the very late 80s, but I would say mostly the beginning of the 90s, where they started getting into all these, not variants, but we called them, like flashy covers. There would be like gold variants, and then they had ones that were like 3D and all fancy, like neon designs to them and everything like that. And it was cool at first, but if anything, if you know anything about businesses, when something's good, they will do it to death. And the biggest problem is, I think what originally started it is when the Image Company was created. And then all of a sudden these new number ones were coming out and people were buying them through the roof. I mean, I remember buying the Youngblood number 1 and the Wetworks number 1 and, of course, the Spawn number 1 and all the others that followed, where it was amazing art because basically some of the top artists like of the time, like the Jim Lees and the Rob Liefelds and the Todd McFarlanes and others, decided to leave their, especially with Marvel, they all left their companies to form their own. And yeah, the foil covers of Death, Randy says it right. They started making beautiful art, but no stories. Because unless you're a diehard fan, I would love to see if anybody can tell me 2 of the characters from Youngblood, 1 of the characters from Wetworks. Other than the Spawn character, name 2 other characters from Spawn from the original. Not including Angela. It's very hard because they weren't good stories. And I remember when Superman 75 came out, the quote-unquote death of Superman. Now, many people that collect comics today weren't even alive, or they were, babies when that came out. But I remember it all too well because in the early 90s, I was in my early 20s. And I remember the news for months about this. It was a thing where even people's parents and grandparents heard about it because, even grandparents, they grew up with Superman. So this was a big deal. And at the time, comic books were selling around $1.25 to about $1.50 on average. And when this bagged issue came out, it was $2.50. So basically the price doubled. That would be like buying almost like a $9.99 comic today. It's not anything larger. Yeah, it came with a poster and a patch, and I still have my original copies of that book still in the bags, never been opened. And then all of a sudden, a couple of months later, he's brought back. And I think that was really the beginning of the end. Now, many people are starting to see things like the excessive amount of variance to this day, where they just overkill. Like, for example, if you see recently with the Action Comics 1000, and what you're going to see with the Amazing Spider-Man number 800, what you saw with the Star Wars number 1, with dozens upon dozens of variants, it's getting to the point where people are starting to get a little bit of a fatigue. So, of course, the natural question is, will we repeat history and have another comic book crash? And if so, when do you think it would happen? Now, being a person that experienced the original crash in the 90s, I see some similarities, but I also see some major differences as to why, in my own belief, I don't think a crash is going to happen for some time now. The two major reasons why I say that. Number one is the comic print runs themselves. Now, today's print runs, if it's got 200, 300, 400,000 copies, that's considered a large print run. Back in the 90s, if you only sold 400,000 copies, there must have been something wrong with that book. Because you're talking about, like, for example, the X-Men number 1 from the 90s, and the Superman 75s, and the Spawn number 1s. You're talking in the multi-millions of prints of that book. Because back in those days, I remember my comic book store owners that I went to would say, you know, especially like, for example, with the X-Men number 1, because they were like 4 or 5 different covers, or the Batman Dark Knight with the 4 neon colored books. I still have all of those. Everybody said, oh, you gotta get each one. You should buy multiple copies because you'll be able to put your kids through college. That's what everybody thought. And also there was a magazine back at the time, you know, this was before the internet, so, you know, you didn't have all these popular websites all over the internet you could search. Pretty much the only thing we really had as comic book collectors at that time was called Wizard Magazine. And you could tell that these people must have been paid big time to promote both Image and Valiant. Because me personally, I hated early Valiant work. But everybody was saying that was the in thing. And that's why, like the video I made yesterday, I tell people be careful about emotional buying, because I remember being that way and being easily, you know, persuaded back when I was a teenager and didn't really know better about, oh, you should buy all these Valiants because that's what they told you was in. And it ended up, you know, to this day, because of the fact of the movies, of the Valiant rumors of movies coming out, because, you know, they could say they're coming out, but until they come out, you never know. You could buy all of them in the dollar bins for decades. So nowadays, print runs are not as large because many people that left in the 90s never came back. And you could see it with the sales now. Now, of course, the other major thing right now is the movies and the TV shows. Because when I was a kid, I mean, we had Superman, but only the first 2 were good, and you're talking late 70s for those movies. I think the second one might have been in 1980 or 81. But other than that, I mean, you had some of the cartoons. I used to love watching the X-Men cartoons, but, you know, that was, again, early to mid-90s at that point. There were no Marvel movies out there that were any good, or at all. So nowadays, I think what's really keeping this going, I mean, you have the internet, so you're going to have people be able to communicate in a way that they couldn't before. They have different ways you can get books, because not only can you go to the comic book store to buy them, you can get digital copies, which is a cheaper alternative, so that's going to get a lot of readers out there. you have a smaller amount of print runs, even though they're doing all these variants and things like that. Back then, variants were not like a 1 in 25 or a 1 in 100. They were basically just like a different version of the cover. And I remember buying those gold versions, and they were selling for like $80, $90. And this is back in the 90s. I mean, I still have 3 copies of my Venom #1, the gold variant. I still have 3 of them. For decades, they were worth nothing. Now they're worth probably a couple of hundred. I'm actually thinking of maybe selling them because, my 90s books, I love the fact that some of these are coming back, because for decades they were garbage. No one cared about them. Even books like New Mutants 98 and New Mutants 87, for decades you could find them for under $5 and nobody wanted them. But it's the movies that are keeping things alive. Now, I think there's still a long time to go before it starts affecting the comic book community. And one of the things that I am very glad that people started doing is Marvel almost single-handedly sped up the comic crash this time around with all their kind of SJW type of comics they were coming out with. But because the masses of collectors spoke as a whole, obviously not everybody thinks the same way, but a lot of people stopped buying those comics, and they were complaining a lot about, changing their heroes into people that they're not used to seeing, that if it would have continued in that route, I think we would have already had the crash. But because we, the people, can control what businesses do by using or not using our pocketbooks and our wallets, we can control what a business does. Because the biggest thing that we have to understand when it comes to business is they're going to use your emotions against you. They're going to say all the right things, all the things you want to hear. And I'm sure lots of people that work, for example, Marvel, DC, Image, and all the other places, I'm sure they love what they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. But make no mistake, their job is to earn money to continue the business and to earn a profit. Because, especially when you're talking large corporations like Marvel, Disney, DC, Warner Brothers, all the ones that are in the comic book related fields, even to a lesser extent Sony and Fox, they are owned by shareholders. Shareholders don't care about Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Spawn and all these other characters. They may like them, but their reference point is money. It's the bottom line. It's the profit margin. So that is why when you see something working, or a specific new character that becomes popular, all of a sudden you'll see an overabundance of that character, or an overabundance of a quote-unquote trend, and they will beat it to death. But we as consumers have the ability to slow that down, because it doesn't matter if you hate all of these new variants. If you continue to buy every one of them, even if you buy them just to burn them on a video or throw them in the garbage, you still gave them the money, and that's all they care about in the bottom line. And that's why back in the 90s, the reason that crash and the reason all those prints were happening is because when they do their market research, they're seeing the amount of copies sold. So let's say they sold 8 million copies of X-Men #1. When you add up all the different covers, they're assuming that's 8 million separate sales. But back in those days, people were buying 3, 4, 5, some people I've seen 20 copies of each. So when they see 20 copies sold, they're not thinking it's one person. They're thinking it's 20 different people. So they continued to print more and more. And then, like I was teaching in the other video the other day, it's all about supply and demand. The supply got so high and the demand started diminishing because of the quality of the things were diminishing. People started fading away, and they weren't willing to pay some of the price increases that they were getting at that point. But again, they didn't have the TV shows. They didn't have the movies back then. So they also didn't have the internet for people to communicate and share their love for comics. There was no such thing about that. It was pretty much word of mouth, or again, through that Wizard magazine. Nowadays, we have so many other outlets to get the communication out. I mean, right now, somebody's watching this live that is not even living in the United States. So I'm able to reach people all across the world. In another day or two, there might be a person listening to this at 4:30 in the morning. So the message is coming across in ways that we never had before. And with especially the Marvel movies, they are keeping it not only alive for us, but it's bringing in new people. And this is a message I want to say to anyone out there that kind of does the hate kind of stuff towards other people. And I'm not just saying me, because I see it with other channels as well. One thing people have to realize is you don't want to bite off your own tail. Because every day that a good movie comes out, whether it's Marvel, DC, or an independent movie, if it's Fox or Sony or what have you, every time there's a good comic book movie or a good comic book show, it brings new people into this industry. That means more money goes into it, which justifies the businesses to continue to do what they do. And when people bicker and fight and thumb down videos because they don't personally like a person for whatever reason, new people that are coming in, because I notice this a lot, especially somebody that finally decides they want to make a video, because I've had a lot of people tell me that I've inspired them to make videos, and you can always tell at first, especially if they're new, they're going to be nervous. So if all of a sudden people come along and do their trolling and their, criticizing, attacking people, what does that do? That makes people say, you know what, if this is what the comic industry or the comic book community is, I want no part of it. And then all of a sudden, they no longer put their money into comic books. And then all of a sudden, comic book stores go out of business. Then all of a sudden, people don't go to the movies or don't watch the TV shows anymore. And then all of a sudden, the shareholders are saying, wait a minute, we're losing our profit margins. I think it's time to shut this down. So my plea to some of the individuals in this quote-unquote comic book community is stop the hate. Stop the thumbing down of everybody's videos. I'm not saying mine. You don't have to love everybody. We don't have to sit around and hug each other and scream kumbaya. But if we do this internal fighting, and I was part of that a couple years ago, I want nothing to do with that now. That's why I don't do any live shows where I invite people anymore. I don't want that here on this channel. And if somebody leaves a troll comment, I just delete it now. I don't even bother to really respond. But if we fight amongst ourselves in this quote-unquote community, it's going to stop other people from joining in. If we can all just get along, and I hate to use that phrase, and that doesn't mean we all have to love each other, but if we leave each other alone to do what we love, and we attract more and more people into this industry, we keep it going even further. So my plea to anybody out there that's trolling channels all over, who are doing the negative things, who are, getting the almost elitist attitudes of, oh, you're not collecting the way I am, so there's something wrong with you. We should all allow each person to collect the way they like, because whether you are into comics for reading, or whether you are into comics for flipping, or in them for investment purposes, what have you, each section brings more money into the businesses that create the things that we love. It's pumping blood to keep the creature alive. So if we have internal struggles and we fight amongst ourselves and we cause drama and get into little group sections like it's some gangs or something, it scares new people away, and then they no longer put money into it. And that speeds up the process of a collapse. So it is in our fate, those of us especially that make comic book videos, to represent this in a good way. And that's why I don't do the fighting anymore, or I don't respond to people's accusations and things like that. And I don't care about the thumbs down that I get, because to me it's just somebody's anger. Because I want the people that come here to experience the love of comics, the joy of comics, the fun of comics, the researching part where they actually put the effort in to look up things and think for themselves, to tell them honestly how businesses work and think in a different perspective other than just the emotional, I want that kind of perspective. And that will delay the inevitable. Now, it won't stop it. So the key question really is, what will be the demise of the comic book industry? And here it is, in my opinion. It's all going to boil down to Disney and Marvel. Pretty much Marvel. Marvel has an incredible run of really good movies. Even the bad ones are watchable. Like, for example, Thor 2: The Dark World. Not my favorite movie by any means, but still watchable. It's not, like, cringeworthy bad. In my opinion, because of the incredible run and how much passion they have into it and how much quality they put into it, how much effort they put into it, I feel once Marvel puts out 2 to 3 movies in a row that are bad, I mean, I'm talking like people are really attacking it. Now, I'm not talking about the trolls who just hate something because they're into that brand loyalty garbage and nonsense, which is just foolish. I'm talking about legitimately bad movies that the average public says no. I think once Marvel has 2 to 3 bad movies in a row, that will be the beginning of getting ready for a collapse. Because it's going to take an effect. It's like a bomb that, bursts outward. The initial explosion is going to be felt right there, but the aftermath is going to take time to reach out. So the first movie, everybody's going to be like, well, it was just a matter of time before they had a bad one. If they have a second one in a row that's bad, then people will start to say, all right, well, maybe they're going in the wrong direction. But if there's a third, then people are like, all right, that's 3 in a row. That's not good. Now, DS is kidding around like 3 Ant-Mans in a row. Well, you may not have liked Ant-Man, but it was still a good movie overall from the average buyer, because if it was bad, they wouldn't make a second one. So you may not like it, but the average person likes it. So I've had people ask me about that. They're saying, some people are getting the comic book fatigue. I've heard people say that, and I think some people do it because they know it stirs up controversy and it gets them views. I think that's a ridiculous thing to do, to create something that's not there. Because as you can see with the latest Marvel movie, Infinity War, how many sales records it's broken over the first weekend shows that the average person out there is still not done with comic book movies. Me, as a comic book collector and a lover of comics and a lover of the heroes and even the villains, I can't get enough of these so far, as long as they're good. And that's why I think Warner Brothers needs to really step up their game and stop trying to copycat what Marvel's doing and do their own thing, but do it right. Don't just, to me, the Batman and Superman should not have happened that quickly. They should not have introduced Doomsday that quickly. They should not have killed Superman quickly. Justice League should not have happened that quickly. They need to build up like what Marvel did. And unfortunately, again, because businesses think dollar-wise, I guarantee you the stockholders and the corporate people that control Warner Brothers are saying, look at all the money Marvel's doing with these Avengers movies. We need to do the same, and we need to do it now. And instead of taking the time to do it correctly by establishing the characters, getting you to have a feeling for those characters, they just said, okay, here's a bunch of people. We're going to put on some nice special effects, and you're going to like it. And the sad part is, we have people that are almost like apologists, where they'll say, well, the movie wasn't good, but it wasn't bad, and there was a good part here, and that part was okay. And Suicide Squad, overall, I think that was a pretty... If you're going to be apologetic for something, you're not being true to yourself and what you love. So that's going to send the message of them seeing the bottom line of how many dollars they made. Because I went to the opening of Suicide Squad, opening day, with my wife. And we walked out of that movie looking at each other like, what was that? It made no sense. But if you look at the box office numbers, it made a lot of money. So they're going to make another movie. But are they going to make it better? Are they going to make it at least good? Because the shareholders, the stockholders, and the CEOs and the corporate people are going to say, look at how much profit we made doing the movie that we did. So we have to keep on that same fashion. And that's where people are shortchanging themselves. Because we want quality, not quantity. To me, I don't want a special effects brain dead movie where it's like, here, idiot, look at this attractive, beautiful thing that makes no sense. That's one of the reasons why I will never give another dime to a Star Wars movie after what they did to it. Now, you may like the movie, and you have every right to, but me as a Star Wars fan who saw Star Wars originally in the movie theater in 1977 and have seen every movie, I don't like the direction that they're headed. I don't like what they did to Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, even though Han Solo back in Empire Strikes Back said he wanted his character to die. He actually said for decades that he hated that character because it was so one-dimensional. So it didn't surprise me that they killed him because he really didn't want to do it anymore. But, Luke Skywalker, he was a hero. And what they did to him was a slap in the face to a lot of people. But if you say it's a slap in the face and you hated it and then you put your money in to go see the next movie, well, that's all they care about. They don't care if you complain. They care about that they got your money. So we don't want to settle. So we need to be more honest and open about what it is that's being portrayed in front of us. And that's why I honestly think I am a Marvel person, but I don't hate DC. And I want DC movies to do well, because if they do well, it continually will make more people into this industry. Yeah, and you'll see thumbs down. I'll have 4 or 5. And this is what I'm talking about. It's people that are using their negativity anonymously to create, drama. And that's what I'm talking about. Those particular people that I guarantee you that person, and I know who they are, and I'm not even going to mention their names because it's beneath me at this point to even deal with these children who are adults, by the way. They're not actually children. These are 25 and older, and some of them in their 30s that are doing this stuff. But those are the people that are going to cause these inner turmoils, that are going to get newer people to say, you know what, I don't want to be a part of this. And I've seen videos where that happens, where a person that was just starting to get into comics and they said a character wrong, or they said the wrong artist, or they made a mistake or something like that, and there'll be somebody with an elitist attitude saying, oh, you're an idiot, or you're stupid, or you should... Some people need to grow up, because we're only hurting ourselves. So if you are creating chaos, you will attract chaos. So if people don't want this collapse, because remember, when the collapse happens, it is a matter of time. All of a sudden, a lot of the books that you love will be gone. The movies and TV shows will be gone. They will not, do any more seasons of Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Arrow and Supergirl and all the comic characters that have yet to get their own TV show or movies. They may never see the light of day. So do we really want to have some people's egos that inflated that they would actually be a cause for a demise of something that we love? So some people out there need to grow up. And it's unfortunate that those people will not even take the time to listen to this, because there are a few people in this quote-unquote community that, for whatever reason, based on a bunch of lies and rumors, tried desperately to get me off this network. And it worked for a little while, and they hate me for whatever reasons. I just don't care anymore. But they are hurting the comic book community as a whole, because especially with the newer people, they don't want to be a part of that. And then if they don't buy anymore, that puts stores out of business. And I have only 2 stores near me, and one of them just a couple weeks ago went out of business. I went there one Wednesday to go see, what they had for the new Wednesday pickups, and the store was empty. But I think because of the fact of the movies and the TV shows doing so well, and not every one of them is going to be a home run, but that's what's keeping the comic book industry alive and the buzz that we can create. So that's why I appreciate 99% of my subscribers, because they're not here to fight. They're not here to be rude and obnoxious. And even if they disagree or want to correct me on something that I might have gotten wrong, they don't try and insult me. They just try and say, well, it wasn't this artist, it's actually this artist. And I appreciate that. And that's what we need more of in this quote-unquote community. And that's why I always find it funny when other channels are always saying, oh, it's such a great, combined, wonderful community. There are some bad apples that can try real hard to spoil the tree. I just don't deal with it anymore. But we do have to make the point across that if we all work together, if we all get along, if we all help to build up the thing that we love, we continue to make it stronger. Think of it as an investment. And that's why I don't get into that stuff I used to get into. I used to always try and defend myself from accusations and things like that, and people that pretended to be my friends to take advantage of what I was offering. So I think we got a way to go. Marvel just announced recently that they're in talks of movies going up until the years 2024 and 2025. So it's not going away for a long time. But if we, as the comic book community, the representatives of the thing that we love and more people may be getting into on a daily basis, the more we represented it in a positive light, the more people we not only keep here, but the more we attract here. Because that's why I always tell people, the universe is made of light and magnetism. You get what you give. You attract what you portray. So if we want to have this underlying little sectional group areas of elitist people or people that don't appreciate other people's perspective or point of view or reason behind what they do, you don't have to like it, you just don't have to bash it. And if we can manage to do that, we will keep people wanting to buy comics, wanting to get into different aspects, whether they wanted to read a book for the first time or flip a book for the first time. Because remember, comic book stores need both to survive. You can't just have the readers, because the readers, they only buy new issues. So they're not spending a lot of money. And they may be, especially with the prices of books now, what are they buying? The average person now buying maybe 10 comic books a month when it comes to reading? Because, I mean, how many can you buy and actually read? So a speculator or a flipper is going to spend thousands of dollars. All you have to do is look on eBay and see. Those are not people. Nobody is buying an Amazing Fantasy 15 at a 6.0 so they can read it. They're buying it because it's an investment. Nobody's buying a New Mutants 98 at a 9.8 because they can't wait to open it up and read the story. They're buying it for the financial value. Most people think that's some kind of dirty word. Well, it's putting money into the industry. It's making businesses create the products that we love. And they make the movies to sell toys and to sell their comic books. Because make no mistake, that's what all the 80s comics, the TV shows were all about. The Smurfs and the Transformers and G.I. Joe and He-Man. They were all about, even to a lesser extent, like with newer stuff like Pokemon, it's all about selling a product. That's why they do it. They don't make Pokemon because they absolutely love Pokemon. They make Pokemon because they know little children and young adults are going to buy Pokemon products if they like the images that are presented. And they're going to tell you how much they love the characters. They're going to tell you how much they are really involved in being the actor or actress of a particular character, because that's their job. Because remember, an actor is another word for a liar, because their whole job is to make up things that do not exist. So their careers are based on lying to you. We call it acting. So make no mistake, when they do interviews, they're there because not because they want to be there, they're contractually obligated to be there. And they promote it in a positive way because not only does it make the company money, but it makes them get another contract, which usually leads to more money. So do you think they're really going to be honest about how they feel about dressing up in spandex? And yes, Silver Planet says, to be fair, the creators may have loved Pokemon. Of course, everybody starts out with the love of what they do. But when a business becomes bigger than the original creator can handle, you start bringing in other people. The majority of those people are in it because they see a profit. It's like comic books. Most people, if you tell them to buy a book that nobody cares about, even if it's at cover price or below cover price, the average person won't buy it. But take that same book 5 years later, and all of a sudden, that $1 book is now a $50, $60, $100 book. Everybody wants it. So it's a lot of this industry is based on greed, but unfortunately, most people don't want to see that other part of it and think it's just lollipops and rainbows. I've been in business since 2001 for myself. I see how corporations and advertisement companies and places that you rent space from and order things from, they're all about profit. But they're going to say all the things that you want to hear because they want your business. That's why they want you to love Marvel over DC or vice versa, or Duracell over Energizer, or, Burger King over McDonald's or whatever. It's all about it. And Contender, actually, he says, are you saying actors and actresses are liars? Well, if you think about it, I mean, is there really a real live Thor or a real live Spider-Man? No, they're pretending to be something they're not. So technically, they're lying. So I'm not saying they're going around lying to people, but I'm saying is their whole job is to pretend to be something they're not. So in the realistic form, they're liars. We won't even get into that whole part. But my point is, if we all work together, we can keep this from happening for a lot longer. It's like anything. I mean, look at the creation of this country in the United States. It's united we stand and divided we fall. Well, that factors down to everything. If we're all fighting in the comic book community, quote unquote, people are going to leave it. People are going to separate from each other, so they won't learn from a specific group, which is disappointing. Because sometimes you can learn more from your enemy than you ever can your friend. So, because sometimes you can learn what not to do. But it will also keep other people from getting back into it, or ever starting it, or giving up on it. And that's not productive. It's counterproductive. And that's why I let go of all that childish stuff. And more people need to do that. So to me, a comic book crash is going to start. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen during that time, but once a Marvel third movie in a row gets negative reviews and is a bad movie, that is going to be the start of the end. And how long it takes from there basically depends on what we do. We that make comic book videos, that maybe do whatever posts on different websites or whatever like that, we are representatives of the things that we love. So if we want to have people fight and argue and hate and thumb down videos and create negativity, eventually it creates an atmosphere that most people don't want to be a part of. They lose interest, they go on to something else, and they spend their money elsewhere. And in the end, that damages the very thing that we love. To me, that doesn't make sense. So I guarantee you, if a CEO of a corporation is seeing his employees all bittering and arguing and fighting amongst themselves, he'll clean house or she'll clean house and start all over again. Because you don't want that negativity, because it eliminates production. So we need to be smarter than that if we want this to continue doing what we love. On the other hand, some people want to crash, because then it gets rid of so many people, the demand for books will go down and they can get comics for cheaper prices. That's to me a selfish way to look at things, because then they're thinking about themselves and saying, the hell with the masses, the hell with the fact that everything's going good and we're all enjoying it. I need to get my books cheaper, so if it all crashes, that means more for me. That's a person with a very selfish, greedy attitude, and that's something that is negative and we don't want. So another thing, like Pope Cerebus I just said, books are going to $4.99 soon. To me, it's just a matter of time. And again, if they've priced it out of the market, that's going to keep a lot of people away. Because, when I was a kid, the books would range anywhere from 75 cents to $1.25. The average was around $1. You could buy 20 books for $20. With $4.99 prices, if it does come to that, that's 4 books. That's a dramatic decrease in the amount that you can buy. And you see how many comic books are out there. And I think, in my opinion, especially Marvel, They need to stop doing these reboots and doing all these #1 issues. That's why I don't buy that many anymore. And if you notice, most of the #1 issues I've shown recently have been from independent companies. It's very rare you'll see me with a #1 Marvel or DC book. On occasion, I might get one, but the majority of them is trying to support the independent companies. So we need to understand there are people here that just love to read comics. We have to understand there are people who just buy them because they love the artwork and could care less what's in between the pages of the cover. We have some people that buy a book and instantly turn around and try and sell it for the most money possible. There are people who will buy 20 of the same book, go to an artist, and have him sign all day his books. We have people that are saying, I want to buy books because I think this book might be putting my kids through college in 10 years. Every way is right. As long as you're not stealing from somebody, as long as you're not misleading people for your own personal gain, there is no wrong way to collect comics. So the ones out there that are trying to point out other people's wrongdoings because they're doing something different, they need to stop if we want this to work. So that's where I call on my subscribers or anybody's subscribers to call out people that are being negative. And that includes me. If you think I make a video that comes across negative or elitist or something like that, I want the people to call me out. And not by just thumbing down a video, explaining what it is that I can do, because I can correct it. And Contender says Marvel comics suck. They focus too much on variants and hyper-character solos for an upcoming movie or TV show. But like I said, the reason that they put these things out, we love to read them. They do it for movie production, and they do it for toys. It's all about a way to get you to be emotionally attached to something so you will buy every product that that company puts out, whether it's good or bad. And that's why I tell people you got to get rid of brand loyalty. You got to get rid of the emotion for the most part when it comes to buying something. Think it through. Research it. Is this worth the product because it's a quality product, or am I buying it just because it's a company I happen to like? Because I can't stand what they've done to Star Wars, and Disney did that. But Disney has made some great Marvel movies. I love Infinity War. See how I can separate the good and bad, and it's the same company? I can still like the company, but not like every single thing that they put out. Because I expect quality for what money I want to put into it, because it's an investment. Even if you're going to a movie and spending $12, you're investing that $12 on getting something back that was worth that money that you spent, regardless of what it is. And it's the accumulation of those $12 tickets that end up making them the billions of dollars that they have. So if we settle for mediocrity, mediocrity is what we're going to get. And we're going to get less and less good and beneficial and positive and entertaining things, because they're going to test how far can they go, and people with brand loyalty will still continue to give them their hard-earned money. Make companies earn your loyalty. Not just assume it because they did everything right for the past month, year, decade, century. What have they done lately? And don't justify something that's bad, because that's what you're going to get then. They care about your money, and that's it. They care about you filling the seats in the movie theater. They care about you buying a comic book, whether you burn it, read it, store it, sell it, regardless. They make their money on your sales. So spend your money wisely. So that's it. I think this one's kind of almost a controversial kind of topic. I think a lot of people have different opinions. But my thing is, you got to look at the whole picture. So you got to look at it from different perspectives. And you got to be not afraid to speak about those very things, because otherwise you only see part of a picture. And if you run any kind of business, you got to see all of the factors, not just the parts that you can connect with or you like or you agree with. You got to look at things at all perspectives. That's how you formulate the best chances of getting something right or getting the best image. So for me, I don't see a comic book crash until at least 3 Marvel movies in a row are financially bad. I'm not talking about the individual person who might not like that movie. I'm talking about sales, where they actually start to lose money or they're borderline just barely getting by. Once 3 of those in a row start to happen, that's when the fatigue will start setting in. That's when people will talk about it, and that's when sales will go down. Until then, there are going to be plenty of people in this industry. So it's our job, anybody that makes comic book videos, it's our job to be positive representatives of what we love if we don't want to speed up the degeneration process of it. So I'm asking all subscribers of all channels to call out people, even if you like them, to say, listen, this particular video that you're doing where you're insulting other people or attacking other people or criticizing other people's choices, that's got to stop if you want my viewership. Not I'm going to love this person no matter what this person says because I'm afraid to be an individual and I need the group thought process. Don't be that guy. Don't be that girl. That's why I separated from a lot of people in this quote-unquote community, and I focus on the positive people that are here for comic books, for the love of comic books, for the different variations of decisions making in comic books, and people appreciate my honest point of view. My honest point of view does not mean that you are going to like what I say or even agree with what I say. All I ask for is you respect my right to be able to say it because it's my thought process, it's my opinion, it's my perspective, just like I will respect yours. And that's what we need more of if we want this to last even longer. So I hope that answers the question. I am so happy that almost everybody that subscribes to me, I mean, there's a few that subscribe to me for the negative reasons I pointed out, but the majority of you are here for the right reasons. You want to learn about comics, you want to see comics, you want to talk about comics, you want to continue to do what you love, and it justifies you spending another $1, another $100, another $1,000, putting it into an investment, because that's what this is. It's like any stock in any company. Once people lose faith in that company, once people get tired of the shenanigans the company has created, where they have that elitist attitude of, oh, we can put out all the garbage we want because you'll keep coming back. That's why I don't watch sports anymore. I used to be the hugest Yankee fan. Now, with the elitist attitude of some of these players and some of these owners where they think we can do whatever we want because we'll know you come back, well, I haven't been back since 2009. Actually, no, since 2008. Before they made the new stadium at Yankee Stadium, I haven't been to it, and I will not go to it. The only way I'll go is if somebody gives me a free ticket or I win it on some radio station. They will not get a dime from me. And if enough people stood up for their beliefs, you can change anything for the better, because businesses, when you don't give them give them the money they want, they have two choices. They can change the direction they're going and make a better product, or they'll go out of business. Most companies, they'll do everything in their power to not go out of business. But if you complain about all the stuff that they do, and yet you still give them your money, even if you complain on a daily basis, they see the bottom line of the profit margin, and that's ultimately all they care about. And until we can understand that, we're going to see it as the people who love the characters, who love Spider-Man, love Superman, love Wolverine, love Spawn, whoever, and think just because the actors and the actresses and the people that create them and draw them and write them say they love them, we're going to believe everything. They ultimately do it in the end nowadays because they want to get paid, and they get paid a lot more than we do. So until we think differently, until we are more honest with each other, things will never change, and that goes with everything in your life. They love when people complain as long as you give them your money, and they will keep giving you the very thing that you're settling for. And if you're a person that likes to settle, then you will get what you ask for. Be careful what you wish for. You may get it. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Leave a like button if you appreciate it. Leave a thumb down button if you're one of my trolls or you hated what I had to say. Hit subscribe and be a part of this channel. Check out my other videos. I do these periodically. Let me know in the comments section what you thought of what I said. Let's hear an open forum with a positive discussion and a positive criticism if you didn't like it or thought I should do something different, or you want to share your own opinion. Because that's how change gets done the right way. And if we want this industry of what we love to keep going, we need to change things a little bit. and we need to watch out for one another. So thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. And don't forget, it's not you, it's not I, it's we love comics. Peace out.